welcome all.
Welcome.
We're going to give a quick introduction of ourselves, but not by ourselves, so hopefully this works.
So, I got something super cool for our listeners today.
Oh, really? What's that?
Well, we're diving into this masterclass, From Fiction to Facts, AI's true role in influencer marketing. Sounds pretty intriguing, huh?
Totally. You know, it's all about cutting through the hype and actually figuring out how AI fits into influencer marketing. I mean, it's fascinating.
Yeah, and who are our guides through this session?
We've got Andrea Cortes, who's just amazing with insights and strategy, especially with her experience in beauty and hospitality marketing across LATAM and Europe, and Joe McElligott, who's basically a thought leader in brand strategy and AI. Super smart guy.
Wow, they sound like the perfect duo. What kind of stuff are they going to cover?
They're diving into the actual applications of AI in influencer marketing, strategy, measurement, search, creation, you name it, and really looking at what it can, do and where it comes up short. So let's welcome up this duo and let's dive in.
Thank you. Right, we promised we didn't write that.
It was prompted by
that was prompted. But to give you a little introduction, we're MGM Power. We're a fully integrated marketing agency with huge foundations and an emphasis in social and influencer. The role of today is essentially to unpick a little bit about the role of AI within influencer marketing. We are not AI specialists, we're not developers, we're not coders. Our background is marketing and specifically social and influencer marketing, but we are hugely intrigued by it, interested by it, and we spent the last few years trying to work out how to use it, how we should be using it, what's out there, and hoping to kind of spread those learnings to you today. And also look a little bit in terms of what it might hold in the future.
Cool. So we wanted to start a little bit with a dynamic to see what the true numbers are from the people that are here with us. So if you can scan that QR code, and let's see actually how many of us here actually use.
I don't think they.
Oh, sorry. There we go. Actually, how many of us that use influencer marketing platforms today, do we actually know if they are powered by AI or machine learning? Good QR code, Julia? To start sync. Cool. It's a little bit even surprising for what...
We thought there'd be more yeses.
Yeah, because of Web Summit Tech Led, we were like, we think we need a backup stat also. So great, thank you for that. And so the reality is, as we just saw from the room, that 56% of marketeers actually don't know if the platforms that we're using today use AI or any sort of machine learning. We have no clue. Some of you guys do, but the broad audience itself don't. So today's objective is specifically that. We wanted to break through the hype that is going on in media, that is going on across marketing industry, and really demystify what is AI's true role in influencer marketing and exploring what are the real applications, what are the real benefits, what are the actual limitations that we have as of today.
Lovely. AI and influencer is vast, but we've essentially broken it down into these 4 different categories, buckets, whatever you want to call them. So we're going to look into how is AI used in strategy, the planning of influencer content, the discovery if you are a brand or an agency working out who is best for you through using AI, the creation element itself. So actually once the influencers start to create content, how are they using AI? How's the agency using it? And then finally, the measurement element of it, not only measuring what's happened using AI, but also using AI to work out, okay, what are the optimizations for your next campaign? Within those 4 buckets, we've essentially looked into, okay, what's the gambit? What are people, agencies, influencers saying they're using, how they're using AI? And then we're going to look at the reality. What is actually AI that they're saying is out there? What can you do today? Tools, processes, formulas, etc., within using these AI formulas, and then what's the future? We're going to touch on a little bit in the end some far-flung, philosophical, weird and wonderful, where do we think it's going to be going? That's looking a little bit something like this. I'm going to spend 5 minutes on what are the foundations, what's the status quo that we're playing in. Then we're going to look at the strategy. How is AI being used to become a thinker? Then we're going to look at how is AI being used to look at kind of the discovery, the creator, and then that future piece. I think it's important, before we go further, just to clarify what AI is and what AI isn't. I'm sure you're probably bored to death out of this in the last few years or few days. I'm not going to spend too long, but just so we're clear, so that when we say things aren't AI, you have a reasoning as to why they're not. AI is not big data. Big data is essentially meaningless without an AI machine learning algorithm behind it that can not only just do functional mathematical equations, but find patterns within that data that you wouldn't otherwise be able to see. This is a game of Go, which is a Chinese game. A computer or an AI algorithm beat a human for the first time 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. People didn't think it was possible because you can't brute force the game of Go. There are too many options, too many finalities to actually win. It's much more a game of kind of intuition and subjectivity and working out where to play roughly without knowing why you're playing something. AI beat a human essentially because we didn't build it on a brute force chess game where it's the right move every time, but actually because it can start subjectively learning from pattern recognition, from machine learning, from playing itself many times and working out what's what. It's an amazing story. I would encourage you to just go and look at it because it tells you a lot about the way we think and the way AI thinks. AI is not advanced search, it's not advanced filtering, it's not Boolean queries. That is done. What it is it's very much, it's natural language processing. It's working out how I can ask in a conversational English tone a question and it's going to give me the answer back in that same tone. This is a bit philosophical, but AI is not objective. We have many, many mathematical ways to do objective thinking. The calculator is the right answer every time. AI becomes more interesting when you start to think that it can answer more subjective questions. Things like, why am I here at Web Summit today? There is no right answer to that, but it will give you a damn good go of giving you something. Whether that's right or not, that's up to your own intuition, and you can always be kind of subjectively against it. But that's when you start to really think that AI is more than just kind of advanced maths. It's not big data sets, it's not search filters, it's not objective analysis, it's machine learning, pattern recognition, it's natural language processing, and it's subjective analysis. This is the world we live in today. You'll have noticed it over the last day. Everyone talks about AI. There are millions of promises, not only in agency world, but from brands through this Web Summit itself, essentially using and abusing the word AI to get seats or bums on seats in talks. You can then start to look at these promises of AI, and I'm sure you've seen millions of these, wherein you're seeing agencies or brands or companies saying that the new frontier of content is capable of being created because of AI, or it's automated with AI, real-time analytics. We use AI to find the value personality alignment. There are many different ways and kind of buckets that people are using the word AI to make promises in. But ultimately, I think throughout this deck presentation, we're going to argue that actually those promises are largely just that. It is a promise. And if you start looking into how these brands, platforms, agencies are using AI, actually it looks much more like that left-hand side of the screen you were looking at earlier, where it's advanced search, it's Boolean queries, it's big data sets wherein they're filtering through with certain metrics. On top of that, the language around platforms and agencies has changed, wherein we're essentially bastardizing words. Where it was once formula, we're now talking about algorithm. Where it was once maths, we're now talking about machine learning. Where it was knowing, it's now AI judgment. Where it was data, we're now talking about big data because it's so much different. This is the premise that we're going through. On the surface, it's buzzwords, it's branding, and it's promises. You lift the hood a little bit, and actually there are some real-world applications of AI today in influencer marketing, and we'll touch on those. But actually, there's more promises out there than reality. And I think the market has essentially distorted the world of and also the word of AI. But in looking where people are promising, you're kind of getting a glimpse of the future and what it will be in 1, 2, 3 years down the line. And you can start to then build processes, ways of working, and also reach out to companies or platforms or agencies that you think have an actual, real, strong, good grounding and understanding in AI. Does anyone know who this is? No?
She's an AI influencer.
An AI influencer. This is Lil Michaela. She's kind of an OG AI influencer. I think she's about 2-3 million followers currently. She's not real. All of this is VFX generated. She does not exist. She only exists digitally. But our point around the word AI being bastardized is actually, is she an AI influencer or is she Trevor? Because Trevor is the person responsible for creating Michaela. And he is the one who puts her in certain clothes. He is the one that chooses her captions. He is the one that kind of dresses her, talks about her, shows where she goes in the world. And that's not really AI in any way. It's actually just him using a computer and projecting his image of her into the world. So I think I'll leave you that and then we'll go through the rest and we'll come back to Trevor at the end for some interesting thoughts. But just as a proof point, AI influencers don't really exist today. They're still just people and they're still just people projecting an image of something into the world. And that will then circle back at the end.
And even with Trevor's and Michaela's case, when Michaela gets invited to fashion shows, who do you think is at the forefront of the runway? Well, Trevor.
Trevor is actually going to these shows, by the way.
Exactly.
As a person.
He's the one in the front row.
And then Michaela goes, yeah.
So, is it really AI? Or is it still the mind of us as humans in the back? So let's go into the thinker. That is how we've defined strategy. The first touch point of any campaign, strategy, search, how are we building in it? So what is actually real when it comes to this specific touch point of our work? Media, again, we go back to the media claims. It says that with AI today, we have comprehensive data analysis, that we're in life, like in real time, getting the analysis and understanding straight away how the audience is responding to a campaign. That's the claim. The second claim is predictive analytics and performance. With AI, we're going to be able to forecast the results of a campaign straight away. Like there's no room for error. Like you're going to have it straight away. And the last one is advanced sentiment analysis. That with the tools we have today on social listening, that we're able to very accurately gauge what the audience perception on our campaign or on our brand truly is. And for the influencer marketing world, what the content of the influencer that is going out there truly is generating on the audience. But the reality is a little bit different. And we wanted to really dive into what is real today, what is even accessible for the broad marketing industry. Because while it is true that there are some AI platforms out there that are already making a big change for the marketing world, it might be the fact that it's a little bit niche still. It's for the big Unilevers of the world, or the big brands, or the big agencies. But how it's scalable is truly when it comes to the broad marketing spectrum, right? Because that's when we actually see that a technology starts to work, when it has mass adoption, when it's part of your daily life. So we wanted to bring in what are the actual challenges that we need to overcome as of today. Because we need to understand that AI quality outcome will only be as good as the source of truth that you input in it. That's the truth. So the first point being that, there is limited data access beyond data scraping. It is still a fact that because of GDPR, because of API access, a lot of the platforms still don't have the access to that truth of source. The second one is nuances and sarcasm. Still today, and I'm guessing we have some developers in the room, it's true that AI still is a little bit challenging for it to understand and interpret sarcasm, humor, cultural nuances. I'm from Colombia. My native language is Spanish. In Hispanic countries, we have very different ways of saying the same thing. Is it able to pick it up already? Because that's the language that we're using across our posts. The third one is dynamic audiences. People behavior changes constantly, drastically, by the second. To keep up with it, we're still struggling that. And finally, sentiment analysis beyond a post caption. When we talk about influencer marketing, the caption that you see on influencer post is curated. It's part of the campaign. We are briefing them on what that caption should look like, what are the guidelines. And today, the social listening platforms, yes, they're able to scrape through linguistic understanding, read through the caption of the post. But what truly interests us as an agency and as a brand is what are people responding? What are the comments saying to this specific content? And there yet, platforms are not ready to do that. But even with these challenges today, there are current public capabilities with AI that we can use to our advantage to make our life within strategy and research a little bit easier. So at MG Empower, we've built this ecosystem of framework that we call it from rationality, feature, and creativity. Rationality being brought by AI because it's bringing in a lot of data. And then creativity, the human mind. And how do those both blend? Because while AI, it is true that it has enhanced efficiency in data analysis sometimes, it cannot really replace the essential human creative spark that is built from our emotional intelligence and from our relatability. People relate to people. So that's one thing that will never change. So the first thing that is within this ecosystem, sorry for that, it's taking some time. There we go. The first one is conversational search engine. So with the ChatGPTs of the world today, it is true that it has completely reshaped how people search. Even Google is being a little bit threatened, not completely because still the stocks of Google are still going up, but it is true that we seek to go and find answers for open-ended questions. We go to ChatGPTs because it brings us a much more filter, much more pinpoint answer to what we're actually looking for. And that's not a bad thing. The important thing here is that while we get that information, we're able to cross-reference it with valuable sources, with reliable sources. The second one is social listening and sentiment analysis. Though I said before that it is one of the challenges, it is true that today with AI, with available tools of AI, even the most entry-level social listening platform where you're able to download the information from, if you impute and clean that information yourself and then impute it into the ChatGPTs, it will be able to recognize some patterning. It will help you to start understanding what are the key search terms that people are using when talking about this specific brand, when talking about this specific campaign. But it needs to come, obviously, from a social listening source. And final one, it's a collaborative AI human brainstorm dump. With AI today, yes, we can shortcut to understand which are the case studies out there that are relevant for the next campaign that we're doing. What has worked, what hasn't worked, what are the references that we need to be in the lookout for? But then that human creativity and interpretation needs to come into play because AI will only bring you what is available in the broad wide web, right? But it's around us as a strategist to also bring in like, okay, with this information, what else can I build? Where is the unpredictable element that will make my campaign, my influencer marketing campaign, really succeed? As we go into the discovery section, when thinking about influencer discovery, how many of you guys actually believe that the AI-fueled platforms, they say that they are fueled by AI, actually use AI to discover talent? So yeah, if you can do that same thing, scan the QR code.
Not yet.
Sorry, I always do that. There we go. Good. Good. So there we go. And this is the reality of many agencies out there still in the world. We're not even sure if our influencer discovery tool uses AI. Because the truth is that it might not yet. So 61% of marketeers agree that this touch point of building influencer marketing strategies is one of the hardest ones. And it's, at the end of the day, the pickle point when creating a successful or not successful strategy, that person that is gonna convey the message of the brand is the right person to do it. But the tangible present is a little bit different. Today, what the platforms are doing for data acquisition is either data scraping, or they do have an API access, which is, as we know, the right place to start. You need to make sure that whoever we're hiring as a platform have API access to the different platforms. The truth is that many of them might have access to the Snapchats or the Instagrams, but they don't have access to TikTok or vice versa. So they're still in that process of negotiating with the platforms to get the source of truth. And when it comes to data processing, they do a lot of estimated KPIs, but they also do very fancy filtering and Boolean search. And that's what we can see in the video at my back. Platforms have big amounts of data. They're being able to even have creators opt in for the platforms, which is great. That's where we should be going to comply with GDPR. But then how the data is processed is very fancy filters. So what could influencer discovery look like if it's enhanced by AI and then machine learning? Today, we're bringing you 2 factual uses as of today. The first one is predictive UGC content analytics. There are platforms out there accessible for the market that they can pinpoint what are the UGC posts when a brand has been tagged that will generate the highest engagement. And how does it do it? First, it's through video and photo recognition. You're gonna see in the video, we've plugged in our social media as MG Empower, and all the content that you're seeing right there is from our podcast. The tool has no clue that this is the podcast of MG Empower, but just based on video and photo recognition, it's able to identify tones, themes, products, that later on, it uses visual trend identification to segment it, to say, okay, this sort of post that uses this kind of color, this kind of lighting, this kind of image composition is generating your brand this amount of engagement rate. And with that said, in the case of a brand, what happens is that if it's able to identify that with UGC content that is public, you're gonna be able to identify which are those UGC partners that are gonna be working for your brand. And more or less, what is the type of content that is generating the most engagement from them? The second factual use is creator brand match based on personality. But take this with a pinch of salt because it's still in development. It is true that influencers' personalities, preferences, interests do shape the content that they create, and hence why their audience is following them. So this next factual use is actually built upon a 5P foundational framework that is built with AI, that is the AI-powered matchmaking. It starts with profiling, going to patterning, prediction, personalization, and performance. Today, we are still at this point of fine-tuning how profiling, patterning, and prediction work together. This is the core of the work as it is of today. But how does it work? It all starts with the API access, right? The connection to the source of truth. And the first thing that happens is image analysis, the profiling. For example, in this case, that the AI is able to identify, okay, this influencer content is outdoorsy, she's barefoot, she has a cap, she's in the nature. How much of this within her content repeats? What is the pattern? So that we can start understanding which are those traits of personality, of psychographic, that we can start then making a segmentation of, okay, this creator, we can identify her as an adventurer. And what we hope soon it will become the truth of our reality is that it starts doing that match between our brand and what the campaign is trying to do with that creator's trait personality, where the match it starts to happen, that prediction, that we're not talking about KPIs. We're talking about the prediction of saying these two actually match together. They make good sense. But could we dream even bigger? Because this is a question that we get all the time from our teams. Like, I want all the claims in media to be a reality. And what we dream about is this: conversational talent search, that I can impute an open-ended query of, give me the top 5 creators in India that are sporty, that have an engagement rate of 5% or above 5%. Very, we're hoping for a lot. But, and that, apart from that, they have in the last 6 months spoken about women empowerment. Like that level. Wouldn't that be a dream? But obviously we need to remember that AI will only be as good as the data that it's based on. So today, the ChatGPTs of the world, the fact is that they don't have the access to the APIs. Therefore, the outcomes that they're throwing our teams and our brands is not fully accurate. But wouldn't this be the actual dream for our industry?
Nice. Okay, so moving on to how AI helps creativity. I think within the influencer world, sort of creation is arguably where we've seen the least inroads of AI within influencers. At least on the surface, on a top line level, we're not seeing influencers directly use AI in their actual creations that they show to the world. That's the opposite to what we've seen brands do. You've seen brands adopt AI like nothing you've ever seen before, whether that's from just mentioning it in their quarterly reports, whether it's using it as kind of creating brand worlds, or whether it's some really interesting stuff being used with personalization, understanding consumer profiling, and then giving them a unique product or a recommendation through the use of AI. You've seen brands massively, massively adopt AI, and it feels fine. Influencers haven't done as much there. And I think it's probably because of the main reason of influencers base their stock on authenticity. If they aren't authentic, they're going to lose trust and they're going to lose followers. If they start showing that they're using AI in their creative process or their output, instantly it's not them, and instantly people start to lose that feeling of authenticity and they're going to lose followers. But I do think there are some learnings we can take from the brands moving into the world of AI that you can start to touch on with influencers and how they can openly use AI in their creative process. I'm hoping a few of you have seen this Heinz AI ad from a year ago, 2 years ago. For those of you that hadn't seen it, they essentially did a really interesting way of making ketchup look synonymous with Heinz. When you type ketchup into GPT, you get the Heinz logo in some way, shape, or form. It was a really interesting, unique way. And then on top of that, they took that premise and they put it to the consumers and said, why don't you go and create your own Heinz ketchup logos, like a cow bus Heinz ketchup? And then they created the best of them. That's a really interesting and good use of AI that brands have done. And I think influencers can take 3 main learnings from it. I think the first is they can't just use AI because it's easier for them. They have to find a reason beyond the use of it and the kind of their own process. They have to find a reason for the consumer. I think lots of creative output is seen through AI as imagery and aesthetics. There has to be a bigger reason, I think, to use AI in creation beyond just that aesthetic notion. And then the final one is it's a really, really interesting and good tool to co-create with audiences today. GPT is open to everyone. There are so many unique and easily accessible ways for you as an audience, as a consumer, just to start using AI. And I actually think it's hugely underused by influencers to start integrating their audiences in new ways and feel more of a community. Moving on from that, I think if they take those 3 principles as foundational layers, there's 2 ways they're going to start using AI. The first of which is ideation, and the second of which is execution. We'll look at ideation first. And I think based on what Dea was saying around the strategy, the measurement, and the finding of influencers, you can start to see how actually once AI has sorted influencers into different verticals, into different categories, beyond that, you'll actually start to see brands take those categories and alter their briefs to different categories and maybe even to individual influencers, basically saying, this is our rough main message. And then that rough main message will be adapted to each different influencer and each different vertical. The second is the influencer brand congruence. Not only will you find influencers that align really nicely with your brand, actually you'll start to find using AI, okay, knowing that this influencer fits with this brand, what's the best product for that influencer? What's the best scenario in which that influencer shows that product? And you can start to see how AI will start to become more adept at giving you this sort of information. It's not there yet. I think it will be shortly. And then we've touched on it a few times. Ideation has to come in tandem, AI and human. You can't just trust it to build something. You have to put your own spin on it. Because ultimately, if you don't put your own spin on it, your execution ends up looking something like this. I'm not sure if you saw this, but a big boxing fight about 2 months ago, the dearest Daniel Dubois posted this like a night before the fight, wherein he'd clearly just been ChatGPTing his captions and he just didn't take the prompt off. So here's a strong and engaging caption for the final press conference post. That's what execution won't be, because it's lazy and it's awful. What I think execution will be, at the moment, 3 different things, or we're sort of slowly progress in the future here, but I think influencers can start easily using AI for components of their video. No one is going to lose that authentic feeling if it is just the text, the copy, the background, using AI in some way, shape or form that isn't the whole video, but just a part of the video. So the components will be used. The next step beyond that is, actually, if you think from an agency or brand point of view, you'll probably know that one of the biggest time-consuming and annoying moments is feedback. Influencer creates content, content goes to agency, agency goes to brand, and it goes all the way back on the loop again. You can start to see actually AI being useful about creating minor amendments, wherein you won't have to go back to the influencer or the brand and kind of do that loop the whole way. They'll just be able to do it instantly and change small, tiny things to make it fit better with that messaging and that brand. And then the final one, this is, I don't think there yet, and I don't think it will be for a while, but you can start to see how it's almost coming to fruition in the world of celebrity and virtual worlds. At the moment, celebrities are being inserted into the kind of the AR, the virtual worlds, and they are building brands in virtual worlds with celebrities. Influencers don't really play in the virtual world, probably because of the inauthentic element. But I do think what you'll start to see is that all of these brands like Jacquemus and the luxury brands that are creating brand worlds through AI, they'll start to integrate influencers within those worlds. So whether you're taking an influencer and you're putting them with a massive VFX AI scenario world behind them, that's, I think, more interesting way to take the authenticity of an influencer, but integrate it in an interesting way to your brand. There is also a basic answer to the inauthenticity. You can now label content on most social platforms as creator labeled as AI generated. But I actually also think it's a huge opportunity, because once you label this content as AI, it essentially gives influencers license to go beyond their normal content to do weird and wonderful things, and people think that, oh, okay, that's interesting and it might be new. And actually, I think it's a really interesting concept that you can label AI and you can start to do things different to your normal content because people are expecting it to be different because it's AI. So if you take the tried and true Get Ready With Me's or Day in the Life that influencers do all the time and it's getting a little bit stale and a little bit boring, what if you labeled your content as AI and actually you were getting ready not in your bedroom, but you were getting ready in an aquarium? Again, it's a rogue shout, but that's when you can start to use AI to build a bit more interest and build a bit more creativity into your executions. Okay, I'll go quickly. To look at the future, this is where we think the state of play is today. I think strategy is, it can't be done today too well, but it is, you can see how it will be really AI. Measurement is less so AI, but it's more easily done today. Discovery is, yes, it can be done today, and yes, it is AI, but to an extent, there's still development there. And I think creation is probably where it can't really be done today yet, but when it is able to be done, that is true, real AI and some really interesting places to play. We're going to look at a scenario now wherein everything is it can't be done today, but what happens when it can in 5, 10, 20 years down the line, and it's truly using AI. I touched on it a little bit, but influencers are very much stuck in their real world, but influencers as a entity build themselves off a value set, off a personality set, off an image. And I think if they can take that value, that personality, that image outside of the real world and start to use AI to create their own worlds, then I think you start to get into more interesting territories, worlds that reflect their values or personalities in unique and weird and wonderful ways that only AI could execute for us. And then I think the other thing stopping influencers at the moment is that there is only typically one of them, a group of them, and they can only create so much content, they can only produce so much content. Because they put so much content out into the world and into the digital ether, AI is going to look at them and understand them much quicker than they would understand me or you, because they know so much about their personality. And actually, it might get to the point wherein, okay, I could be live streaming 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, because there's an AI version of me out there. And that's when you start to, I mean, this is probably centuries away, but I think it's interesting and philosophical to think about that might be where you get to, where it's not you creating the content, it's an AI double.
So even with the case with Charlotte Tilbury, and this is already in conversations within the brand, how can Charlotte Tilbury talking about virtual influencers and ourselves becoming that element of technology being out there? Well, it's already happening with Charlotte Tilbury as they're thinking about how can we make Charlotte Tilbury live forever? She's not going to live forever. She's a human being, but she's such an essential part of the brand. How can, with AI, we can start downloading her IP as a person, her thought leadership as a makeup artist to live forever? And what are the options that she would have as born from AI, let's say, to interact with different markets, in different languages, to even do customer support? Like, what are the possibilities? And this is something that, yes, it's happening in the brand side, but that can put a great base and foundation for influencers to start thinking about what is next for them as a personality. Again, bringing that element of transparency, making sure that they're being transparent and authentic with their audience on their use of AI.
And this is more a thought experiment than I think it might never come to fruition, but influencers are essentially about, it's following, it's idolization, it's mimicry, and it's ambition. You follow influencers because you like something about them. You want to integrate part of their lives into your lives. You want to become them. So why follow and mimic other people and other choices if you can actually follow an idealized version of yourself? And I come back to Trevor. Trevor, prior to Lil Miquela, was an artist, a musician. He did pretty well, actually. I think he toured with an artist, but he didn't do that well. And then he created an idealized version of himself, a pop star that was hanging out with the A-listers of the world, a pop star that had the best fashion. And he essentially created an idealized version of himself. I'm digging into his psyche here. It might not be the case. But as we progress and as you start to give more and more of your data and yourself over to the digital world, they're going to start understanding you as a person more so than ever. And there will come a time wherein, instead of following other people and other influencers that you can't really relate to because they are other people, AI could start serving you yourself, but an idealized version of yourself. So it's not me in myself playing paddle poorly, it's me playing paddle unbelievably well. And that then will influence me more so than any rogue athlete superstar ever would have, because I can see myself more so there than ever before. This is where AI is at the moment. This is a photo we just took earlier. We asked DALL-E to make an idealized version of ourselves. This is not what we hope to be.
Definitely far-fetched from reality. But this proves the point of where are we today with the tools that are out there that are for the masses, for the people. Like, it's great that ChatGPT today is still accessible because we all can start playing around with it and understanding it. But to get to what the hype of the industry and media is saying, we're still a little bit far. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.